Every morning, you step into the shower, reach for a bright plastic bottle, and cover yourself in something you've called soap your entire life. Under federal regulation, it isn't soap. It's a synthetic detergent, a reformulated industrial degreaser. It strips the protective oils your skin spent all night building, and by noon you're reaching for a lotion to replace what never needed removing. This is the cycle, and it exists because a wild plant, one that cleans better, costs nothing, and grows in ditches across the country, had to be forgotten. The industry that replaced it made sure of that. In the eyes of federal law, almost nothing sold as soap today is actually soap. The FDA rulebook draws a hard line. Unless a bar or bottle is made almost entirely from the simple salt of fat and lye and nothing else, it cannot be called soap. If even a trace of synthetic detergent is in the mix, the label must read something else: cosmetic or cleanser or body wash, no matter what the packaging claims. The Code of Federal Regulations, Section 701.20, lays it out in dry bureaucratic language. The rule says the bulk of the non-volatile matter in the product consists of an alkali salt of fatty acids, and the product is labeled, sold, and represented only as soap. Anything outside those lines is no longer soap. It is a chemical cocktail built from petroleum derivatives like sodium lauryl sulfate and cocamidopropyl betaine. These are compounds first engineered to degrease engines and factory floors, not human skin. This is not an accident. The industry found a way to sidestep the law, swap out the old recipe, and still flood the market with bottles labeled soap. The result is a modern ritual: strip the skin with harsh detergents, then reach for a moisturizer to repair the damage. The skin's natural oils, carefully rebuilt overnight, are erased each morning by a product that never needed to be there. The cycle is profitable, relentless, and perfectly legal. What gets lost in this shuffle is the quiet, stubborn presence of a plant with its own answer, a free wild cleanser that never needed a factory, a patent, or a warning label. Soapwort doesn't need a garden or a greenhouse. It grows where the world forgets to mow, along gravel roads, behind barns, in the half-shade of a ditch. The old-timers called it bouncing bet, a plant that springs back when trampled, stubborn as memory itself. Its leaves are smooth and paired, reaching out opposite each other on jointed stems. In summer, clusters of pale pink flowers open at dusk, each with 5 notched petals and a faint, sweet scent. The roots run thick and ropey, easy to pull from loose soil, and when crushed under water, they turn the stream cloudy with foam. Soapwort thrives in hard places, rocky slopes, roadside margins, the kind of ground most plants abandon. It shrugs off drought, frost, and poor soil, spreading quietly from a single rhizome until a whole patch ripples with green. Pioneers relied on it for a reason. In zones 3 through 9, from the northern edge of New England to the southern plains, families planted soapwort near the well or laundry shed. A handful of leaves or a chunk of root mashed in a bucket gave them a gentle wash for hands, linen, or hair. No lye burns, no chemical residue, just a faintly sweet lather and the knowledge that clean could come straight from the ditch, free for the taking. Even now, if you know where to look, it is still there, waiting, unnoticed, beside the road. Drop a fistful of soapwort root into a bowl of water. Nothing fancy, just tap water, cold from the pipe. With a little pressure from the palm, the roots crush easily, releasing a faint, earthy scent. Within seconds, the water clouds and begins to fizz, a layer of foam rising and clinging to the sides. This is not the thin, fleeting lather you get from a cheap body wash. The bubbles hold their shape, dense and creamy, refusing to collapse for nearly an hour. Lab tests put that foam stability at 45 minutes, almost as long as the best synthetic detergents. But the real trick is what is happening on a microscopic level. Each saponin molecule from the soapwort acts like a tiny magnet, pulling oil and dirt away from skin or cloth. They form invisible spheres, micelles, that trap grease inside and let water carry it away. That is the same basic physics behind every modern cleaner, only here it is done by a wild plant, not a chemical factory. Surface tension drops to 32 millinewtons per meter, a number that means little until you realize it is the measure of how easily a liquid can spread and lift grime. In plain English, soapwort cleans, and it does it with nothing but root, water, and the quiet intelligence of its own chemistry. No warning labels, no synthetic residue, just a plant that, for centuries, made clean possible wherever people could reach the ground. In the quiet back rooms of the world's great museums, where sunlight never touches the tapestries and every fiber is counted as irreplaceable, the rules for cleaning are different. Curators and textile conservators at places like the Met, the Smithsonian, and the Louvre face a simple question. What can clean a 200-year-old silk scarf without stripping its color, dissolving its threads, or leaving behind a chemical trace? The answer, more often than most people would guess, comes from a plant that grows in roadside gravel. The same soapwort that once cleaned Pioneer laundry now stands as the first line of defense for priceless artifacts. Conservation manuals, passed hand to hand, and guarded as closely as the objects themselves, lay out the protocols. Soapwort root, dried and chopped, is steeped in cold or barely warm water. Never boiled, never forced. The solution, usually around 3 to 5% by weight, is filtered until clear. Silk scarves from the late 1800s, linen altar cloths, and even fragments of ancient banners are lowered into this mild bath for just a few minutes. No scrubbing, no harsh agitation. The foam rises softly, lifting away dust and soot without swelling the fibers or leaching out the dyes. Afterward, the fabric is rinsed in distilled water and dried flat, with no trace of perfume or residue. The reason is both practical and profound. Synthetic detergents, with their high alkalinity and sticky residues, can yellow linen, weaken silk, and attract dust long after the object leaves the bath. Soapwort, by contrast, leaves almost nothing behind. No lingering film, no scent, no chemical ghost. Museum records show that a soapwort solution, when used at low concentrations, does not corrode metal threads or soften old adhesives, preserving both the look and the structure of the original textile. For conservators, this is not nostalgia or botanical romance. It is a matter of survival for the world's most fragile treasures. When the stakes are irreplaceable, the wild plant wins. Human skin is not just a blank surface waiting to be scrubbed clean. It is alive, covered by an invisible film called the acid mantle, a thin layer of natural oils and mild acids that keeps out harmful bacteria, locks in moisture, and helps the body heal itself. Dermatologists measure this protective shield with a simple pH test. Healthy skin lands between 4.5 and 5.5 on the scale, just slightly acidic. That is the range where the skin's own defenses work best, supporting the good bacteria and keeping irritation at bay. Most modern cleansers ignore this balance. A typical bottle of body wash built on sodium lauryl sulfate registers a pH around 3.8, more acidic than skin, but paired with the detergent, so harsh it strips away the very oils the skin needs. After a single wash, studies show a spike in water loss from the surface and a measurable rise in redness and itch. The acid mantle is left raw, forcing the body to scramble and repair itself overnight, until the next wash starts the cycle again. Soapwort, by contrast, lands neutral on the pH scale. Lab tests show a simple root infusion sits at about 7.1, barely above pure water, and far less disruptive than either synthetic cleansers or old-fashioned lye soap, which can soar above pH 9. In clinical trials, skin washed with soapwort extract shows almost no increase in irritation or moisture loss. The foam lifts away dirt and oil without burning through the skin's natural defenses, leaving the acid mantle nearly untouched. This is not just a matter of comfort. For people with eczema, sensitive skin, or anyone tired of the endless lotion chase, the difference is more than a number. It is the line between a body that can protect itself and one left exposed by products designed for a factory floor. The plant in the ditch offers a kind of respect for human biology that no bottle on the shelf can match. In 1942, a quiet order from the War Production Board changed the chemistry of cleanliness in America. Animal fats, once the backbone of every bar of soap, were declared strategic materials and redirected to the front lines for explosives and lubricants. Soap makers watched their supplies disappear almost overnight. Procter & Gamble, the country's largest household brand, faced a 30% drop in tallow deliveries. In June 1943, an internal memo called for a new approach. They wanted a cleaner that did not need a single drop of animal fat. The project was codenamed Tide. The solution was found in the deep wells and refineries of the petroleum industry. Chemists at BASF and Henkel in Europe, and at Procter & Gamble in the United States, filed patents for a new kind of cleanser, one built from oil, not from plants or animals. These synthetic surfactants, called alkyl benzene sulfonates, did not just clean, they cut through grease with a force that soap could never match. By 1946, the first box of Tide rolled off the line, a powder that foamed in hard water, worked in cold water, and owed nothing to the farm or the field. By 1949, the patent for linear alkyl benzene sulfonate was granted, locking in a formula that would become the industry standard for decades. The old simple chemistry of soap, fat, and lye was replaced by a molecule born in a refinery, designed for scale and profit. The shift was not driven by consumer demand or any failure of the old ways. It was a wartime decision made in boardrooms and government offices that rippled out to every home in the country. What began as an emergency measure became the new normal, and the story of a wild plant's gentle foam was quietly written out of the script. In the years after the war, the battle for America's sinks and showers moved from the lab to the living room. Ad agencies, flush with new television budgets, set out to rewire what clean looked like. In 1951, J. Walter Thompson, then the world's largest advertising firm, penned a creative brief for Procter & Gamble called The Power of the Suds. The marching orders were clear: sell the foam, not the formula. Bubbles became the proof. A mountain of suds in the sink meant the dirt was gone, never mind what was actually lifting it. That year alone, $1.2 million poured into television and magazine spots, a staggering sum for the era. The message was everywhere. The more bubbles you saw, the cleaner your home, your clothes, your body. Print ads in Ladies' Home Journal pictured kitchen sinks overflowing with white peaks, a housewife beaming with pride. On NBC, a child blew soap bubbles as the narrator promised that when the suds rise, the germs fall. Behind the scenes, copywriters were instructed to push the visual, slow-motion footage of foam, close-ups of glistening dishes, hands buried in bubbles. Susan Klein, a senior copywriter on the Dawn campaign, later recalled that they were told consumers equated more bubbles with more cleaning power, even though chemically that isn't the case. The foam was a show, a psychological shortcut. Real cleaning, as any chemist knows, happens at the level of molecules, oil lifted, dirt trapped, water carrying it away. But the industry needed something visible, something that could be staged on camera and sold on a billboard. The result was a new kind of demand, not for better cleaning, but for bigger, longer-lasting suds. The product had changed, but the real shift was in the mind. The more the bubbles, the deeper the trust, and the more bottles left the shelf. Inside the boardrooms and patent offices, the logic of the modern soap industry is simple. Profit flows from chemistry you can own. From 1930 to 1970, more than 4,200 patents were granted in the United States for synthetic surfactants, compounds engineered to foam, degrease, and persist. These patents do not just protect a formula, they lock in a revenue stream, one bottle at a time. In the same span, only about 30 patents mention saponins extracted from soapwort. The plant itself, wild and uncooperative, cannot be patented. Its chemistry is old news to nature, and that makes it a dead end for anyone looking to build an empire. The cost breakdown tells the rest of the story. A kilogram of synthetic detergent, built from petroleum, refined in vast chemical plants, costs about $1.45 to make. The same amount of purified soapwort saponin, harvested and extracted by hand or by small machine, runs closer to $3.80. That is more than double. The difference is not just in labor or logistics. It is in the scale. Synthetic detergents ride the backbone of global oil infrastructure, with every step optimized and subsidized. Soapwort, by contrast, grows where it pleases, yields less per acre, and refuses to fit the mold of industrial agriculture. The numbers at the top are staggering. The personal care and soap market, driven almost entirely by synthetic surfactants, is now valued at $140 billion a year. Natural surfactants, soapwort included, barely register as a blip, making up less than 0.5% of the market. The financial incentive to keep the public hooked on patented, high-margin chemicals is overwhelming. Every bottle sold is another small reinforcement of dependency, a product that strips the skin, a lotion to repair the damage, a promise that the next new formula will finally be gentle. The cycle is not an accident. It is the outcome of a system built for profit, not for human health or ecological sense. The wild plant, by its very nature, stands outside this logic, free, unpatentable, and quietly dangerous to the bottom line. Every bottle rinsed down the drain carries its story far beyond the bathroom. What starts as a daily wash becomes a chemical thread running through rivers, lakes, and the veins of the land itself. The numbers are not abstract. The EPA aquatic toxicity tests show that the main ingredient in most body washes, linear alkyl benzene sulfonate, kills half of water fleas at just 5 milligrams per liter. The same test for Soapwort saponins requires more than 200 milligrams per liter to reach that threshold. In plain terms, the synthetic detergent is over 40 times more toxic to aquatic life than the plant it replaced. But it is not just about a single dose. Synthetic surfactants do not vanish when they swirl away from the shower. The OECD studies clock their breakdown at nearly a month, 28 days for most, and that is under ideal laboratory conditions. Some of their breakdown products, like nonylphenol, linger in river water at concentrations as low as 0.2 micrograms per liter and disrupt the hormones of fish. These traces accumulate, flowing downstream from every household and hospital, building up in the food chain. The water becomes a slow-moving archive of what we choose to wash with and what we choose to forget. Soapwort tells a different story. Its saponins are broken down by ordinary bacteria in the soil or water, with more than 95% gone in just 2 weeks. No persistent byproducts, no silent accumulation. Conservation chemists who track river health look at these numbers and see a simple equation. What you wash off your body does not just leave your skin, it enters the world. The moral weight of a morning routine lands on the backs of mayflies, minnows, and the invisible life that keeps water clean. The choice between a bottle and a root is not just personal, it is ecological, and it is immediate. Today, every plastic bottle on the shelf is a quiet reminder of what was lost for profit. While rivers carry the residue of synthetic degreasers, Soapwort's gentle lather still waits in untended soil, unpatented, unbranded, and free. The industry can't erase the knowledge you reclaim for yourself. Real autonomy starts when you decide what truly belongs on your skin. If this struck a chord, let's talk in the comments below.